So who are you?
I'm Dag Kittlaus. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company, hopefully, that we'll be hearing a little bit more about, called Siri.
Yeah. And who are you?
I'm Adam Chire. I'm co-founder and VP Engineering of Siri.
Very cool. And you're just coming out. This video will be running Tuesday, and you're just coming out. What is Siri?
Siri is a personal assistant for mobile, starting with mobile phones. So it's really big science that's designed to help make interactions with machines easier. Phones, eventually computers, and others. And it's founded on a very big technology that was coming out of Stanford Research Institute,
where the mouse was developed.
Where the mouse was developed, exactly. And there's about $200 million of research and development that forms the foundation of the technology. So Adam was the chief architect of that project. And
so is it an iPhone app right now? Or?
It's going to be an iPhone app out of the gate, and of course we'll see it spread to Android and BlackBerry and others soon after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do we need this? Why isn't Google good enough?
Well, so Google is good at helping you find web pages on the web. And what Siri does is actually become more personal. So Siri can actually help you do things on your behalf. Siri gets to know you over time. It's really what we think is one of the next paradigms. Very complementary to search, we believe. Search is sort of long-tail retrieval of information and so on. But Siri is going to be getting to know you as a person, the kinds of things you like to do. It gets context over time. In other words, when you ask Siri to help you get something done, it knows who you are, where you are, what time of day it is, and it can then help you actually go out to the internet and spin up services that in concert help you get tasks completed.
Give me an example, something where I would go to Google and not get a good result, and I would put it into Siri and I would get a much better result.
Well, I think Google is good at starting to help you take some of the first steps towards finding information and leading you to services that help you do things. But the difference is that the amount of steps that it takes for you to go to Google looking for, if you want to plan a dinner and a night out, for example. So going to Google, you're typing in, French restaurants, and you may get a list of French restaurants, read a review, and so on. But Siri can actually help you plan an entire night out in a minute or less. So you can
what
say,
what would you see on the device? And this isn't I don't want to position you as a Google killer, because it's not clearly not that, right? You're not going to do what Google does.
No, we're not trying to be a search engine. We're trying to be, if you want to draw a metaphor that makes it sound similar to that, you could call it more of a do engine than a search engine. It's about tasks, getting things done in the real world.
Okay.
So actually you can say to Siri, get me a table for 2 at Zabibo at 6 p.m. And the next thing you're going to get is a confirmation of that reservation.
And it hooks into APIs like from OpenTable, right?
Yes, exactly.
And that's really wild.
Yeah.
Because I saw a preview of it a year ago.
Yeah.
How has it changed in the last year?
A lot more services, a lot better understanding of what you're trying to do. We're applying more context to it. So right now we have about 35 or 40 services that it plugs into. So
Give
essentially,
me a taste of some of them that you're plugging into.
So for movies, movietickets.com, Rotten Tomatoes, a variety of review sites like New York Times and Entertainment Weekly. So everything you can think about that relates to going out to a movie and all the information you might want to get in the process of that, all get aggregated at the same place through a single command. And that command could be, find me a PG movie playing near my house for tomorrow morning, like a matinee, for example. So we would be checking all that information on the fly. We would narrow that down. We would draw reviews for that movie in. With one click, you can automatically, in an integrated way, get the ticket.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and the essence of it, and a good way to think about it, Robert, is the internet has thousands of sort of tentacles out there that are APIs, that are services that are out there waiting to help you do something.
Yeah.
The problem is that each one of those is an island on itself.
Yeah.
So one of them does reviews, and another one does booking, and another one does whatever. They're out there, but you have to be aware of all those services as a user. You have to go to each one of those places, sign up, learn a different user interface. They don't share context and information with each other. What we're trying to do is make a conversation out of it. So picking up something like a phone, which is to some extent turning into a remote control for your life, simply pressing a button and saying, Siri, send a taxi to my house in an hour.
Yeah.
Or Siri, find me a fancy French restaurant for 2 people tomorrow night in San Francisco. It takes all that information, synthesizes it into a command, figures out which services on the internet can help you do it, and will orchestrate all of those together to help get it done. So
we've seen some services that do a little tiny piece of this, right? Like TripIt, when you email your flight information to TripIt, it goes off to APIs and finds like the best seat, or it'll tell you you're sitting in a crappy seat. Yep. You know, there's a better one 3 rows up and to the right, and that gives you a taste. But this goes way beyond that because it's a generalized. It's not just for travel, right? It's for movies, restaurants, travel. Does it do travel? Give me some sense of the scope of things that you're already doing.
Right. So TripIt is a good example that's starting to get into thinking more holistically about task orientation and what all of the aspects are that you probably want to think about or do, and starting to automate that. So today Siri is looking at a set of domains that we call them. We'll be adding new domains to Siri every month, which I think is a task in and of itself. Yeah. But Siri will do things like restaurants and finding local businesses and events. So I don't believe there's another site that you can say, hey, who's playing at Yoshi's on Saturday night? Yeah. And just get the answer in one click to getting tickets to it and so on. We do some other basic things like weather and a few others. And we're starting slowly. Siri's sort of coming out of the gate. You know, now
when I played with it a year ago, if you're in those areas where there's lots of APIs for you, and we'll talk about the technology of how it works, the experience is really wild. I mean, it's like over the top. You got to try it. And when it works and when the APIs are there, it works really well. You know, restaurants and movies. When you try something outside that doesn't have very many services that have good domains, like maybe traffic. You want to say, what's the traffic like? There might not be good APIs between here and San Francisco, right? So although there are now.
Well, here's one big difference between the last time we talked to you and now.
Okay.
Is that there's been an explosion in APIs. Yep. So if you go to websites like programmableweb.com, which is sort of a Yahoo of APIs, they aggregate and give editorial coverage of everything that's going on. You see the explosive growth in the number of APIs that are out there. That's a key part of the ecosystem, which makes this such a powerful proposition. Yeah. It's really, really changed a lot.
The other thing is we've gotten much better at understanding, understanding our domains, and if someone asks something outside of the domain, we can fall back to other technologies such as search. So for search, search is a service for us, and if we say, well, sorry, I don't know the answer to that, but here's what a search engine has to say, and we'll pull in search results from Bing or other search engines right into the Siri experience. So we like to think, in many cases, you probably won't go to Siri as your primary search engine, but we can give you back at least what search does in those cases.
So at least you fail gracefully in the areas and you can figure out where the areas are that you don't yet have coverage. Tell me a little bit about the technology. Like when I do a search, or it's not really a search. It's more of talking to the system. Get me a table at Zabibo on Thursday night. What does it do? How does it break up that string, and how on the back end, what is it doing?
Okay, so I'd say there's really 3 main technical components of our solution. The first is the intent understanding with the language, dialogue, and context. And so when you talk to it, it's thinking about who you are, where you are, what time of day it is. If you say, give me tickets to the Giants game, here in San Francisco, it's San Francisco Giants. If you're in New York, it's football, New York Giants. And it carries context across that. So you'll say, I want to do dinner and a movie near my house this weekend. And it'll say, well, where do you want to start with the dinner and the movie? And so you converse. I'm looking for maybe a comedy movie. Oh, and are there any Italian restaurants near this theater? And instead of having to go to forms and keep typing in, it's for this weekend, it's near my house, it's for 2 people, it's that context flows. So that's one of the main key technologies.
And that's really tough. I mean, I worked at Microsoft, and I knew there was a bunch of smart people at Microsoft Research just trying to figure out how to parse language in that way.
It's extremely difficult, and it's extremely difficult to do well in a fairly general way. So one of the breakthroughs that we've had is we've lowered the bar to what it takes to add a really good conversational interface to a growing ecosystem of web services. And we want to get to the point where we can literally have external developers or partners add in new services, and without being an AI expert, be able to add what you need to do to be able to converse.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one key technology area. The second is the reasoning about which are the best services to handle a request for that user. So if I say, get me a restaurant tonight, OpenTable may be the highest rated provider, but it only has 7,000 restaurants in certain metro regions, so you have to fail over gracefully. If I say, get me the best lasagna in San Francisco, you might go to allmenus.com to check that that's actually, that lasagna is on the restaurant review, and go to Yelp for some users, or Gaio, maybe they prefer different professional rating services, and combine all that information, and then add OpenTable times, and et cetera. So every request is handled on a per user basis, based on where they are, their preferences, it's live, and it's a different for that user.
And what they asked for. That's a
exactly.
key thing.
So restaurants tonight, that does one thing. If I do restaurants serving this, whole different. And if you get to a complex query of fancy French restaurant for 2 people Saturday night serving lasagna, that is romantic, how do you combine all of those services together to get the best result? That's kind of the key second area. And then the third is really the personalization and preference learning. So over time, you can say, get me a hotel near my house, or I want something to do, and it'll be tailored and better for each individual user.
Now, how does it know
time.
where my house is?
Right.
Does it ask you, or does it talk to you over time and say,
so
is your house really at this
exactly.
address?
So our view is out of the box. You don't have to say a lot. You can get started, and when Siri needs to know something, it will ask you. So you say near my house, it will say, great, you haven't told me where you live. Would you like to share that with me? And do you want to share this one time, or do you want me to save it to your profile? If you save it with your profile, now you can look for restaurants near my house, movies near my house, etc.
Or send a taxi near my house. And there's a whole set of things that when you start attaching things like addresses with tasks and actions. So the more Siri gets to know you, you're actually incentivized to give Siri more information. So it's sort of the antithesis of what search does, which is all about anonymity and how long do you store my data before you get rid of it. Siri is actually providing a direct benefit to providing more information about you so that it can make things simpler. Like, find me dinner around here that I like.
Here's a travel query that's hard to do on anything, right? I need to go to Atlanta. I'm here in Half Moon Bay. I want to know what the cheapest price is, and I want to know, compare 3 airports, because I can drive to Oakland, I can drive to San Jose or San Francisco. San Francisco is my preferred airport, but how do I communicate all that in a little string? Get me to Atlanta. How would I talk to the system and tell it I want to go to
That's
Atlanta?
exactly how you would do it. You would say, get me to Atlanta.
Really?
And the next question would be, which airport do you want to leave from? You'd start a dialogue as if you were talking to an assistant. And once you start giving your assistant information like the fact that you prefer leaving from SFO than you do to San Jose and Oakland, remember that. And the next time you ask, it'll default to looking at what the options are from leaving from San Francisco. So this is a good example of using personal information to make things simpler. And Siri should be like an assistant that you hire originally. So when we just get launched here very soon, it'll be sort of like hiring a personal assistant that is proficient and understands how to do basic things, but doesn't really get to know you yet. But over time, through conversation, it starts to understand you. The fact that you like to leave out of San Francisco, that you have a frequent flyer program with United, that you like aisle seats, and so on, you don't ever have to say that again. Siri will automatically be looking for things that relate to that.
Yeah.
And that's what things like the so-called semantic web enable, is the recognition of various attributes and being able to find things that are very specific to what it is you're looking for.
And this is all algorithmic. There's no human. You're not sending my audio over to India like some of the services do. And
there's a lot of people that are working hard to make it work.
Yeah.
I would say is that angle, but yeah, it's completely automated. So based on the technology that came out of
that makes you a great acquisition target, because like Google, if they were going to buy you, would love an algorithmic. They don't want people involved. Tell me about the business. Where is this going to go? I mean, it sounds like the kind of thing that Bing or Google would be, slobbering over immediately.
Well, I think like any company that has big ambitions, we want to build the next big thing. And we think that Siri, the fact that you have the technologies that enable sort of a human interaction like this is sort of the next wave in computing. So we believe that if there's a rock star persona on the internet, that Siri might be a good candidate to be the first one. That really becomes an assistant that within 5 years' time, everybody has an assistant that they delegate the menial task of their life to.
Yeah. How are you guys funded?
We've raised 2 rounds of funding. Just recently closed Series B for $15.5 million. Yeah. All of our existing investors participated, including SRI International. And the lead investor was actually the group called Horizons, which is the financial arm of the Li Ka-shing Foundation, if you're familiar with them. Mm-hmm. So they just invested in Facebook and Spotify and others.
Very cool.
Yeah.
If I'm a developer, is there a play for me to build something that talks to the system or responds to messages from your system?
Not today, but that is our intention, both for partners and developers to be able to add new services and capabilities to Siri to make it smarter every day, and then also to expose ways to proliferate ways to access Siri, because we ultimately view Siri as your assistant in the cloud, and you can get to it from your phone, you can get to it from a desktop, you can get to it from your car, but you continue the conversation through Siri. So we will.
But it's easy to build applications to Siri. So we eventually see Siri as a marketplace. So instead of an SEO sort of search engine optimization to get your results in the top list on Google, you'll participate to be the service that responds to people that are asking to do things. Yeah. So you say, services that have the broad, the greatest breadth of coverage, that have the quickest response time on their APIs, and a whole series of attributes who happen to be very good and have coverage in the geographic area that you're in. They would be sort of chosen to be the services that participate to help people get things done based on what they ask.
Can you negotiate between services live? Like if I'm buying a CD, for instance, a certificate of deposit, I know from other APIs that are available that they're not all the same price.
Right.
A lot of consumers don't realize this, but you can send a query out to the internet and get a bunch of prices and actually negotiate in almost real time, and then get an answer back.
Well, as long as their service is automated on the other end, that would certainly be an option. And the idea that Siri is going to be an objective, help assistant to the user means that it's very important for us to have a multitude of services that are essentially competing. When you say, find me the best price, it's not Siri coming back with one result from one provider. It's that Siri is checking multiple providers and coming back and saying, here's what I found for you. So it's decision support for things like that, and you'll be able to quickly see what Siri did to come up with those answers. So trust is a big
so it's very transparent in what it's doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, very transparent. In fact, all of the brands that we work with, and in fact every request that you give Siri, you see the brands at the bottom of the services that are involved in the response.
Now, is that how you guys are getting paid? Tell me a little bit about the business model.
Right. So we think that the future of the web, at least the world of APIs and services, is actually doing and having advertisers define what it is they want to do through things like CPA. So
cost per acquisition.
Cost per acquisition or cost per action. So somebody like Netflix pays us $10 approximately for every new customer that we bring. So it's the next generation of granularity in the advertising world, where services say, don't pay me 50 cents on the Google model for every person that you send to my site. I'm only paying you when they buy something from me.
Right.
So you can imagine an Expedia that only pays us, or an Amazon, a referral fee for the book that was actually bought.
Are you because Google in its search results is if you're a geek, you know that the search results haven't been messed with by advertising dollars, and the ads have been paid for, right? Yes. Do you have that kind of separation where I know my answers aren't being influenced because you're getting paid $10 for a referral fee?
Important question, and I appreciate your asking it, because a lot of people have that question. We will not be influencing based on people paying their way to the top. if there's a day that we end up doing sponsored results, it'll be very obvious in the same way that Google does it.
But we are taking the side of the consumer. I mean, we're your personal assistant. In terms of privacy, you can control exactly how much information you share. You know, you want to give us a lot for convenience, great. If not, that's fine too. So, you know,
or if you have services that you prefer.
Yes.
So if you have a frequent flyer and you want us to default to United to begin with, that's fine. If you like Yelp reviews and you trust them more than you trust Zagat's or somebody else, you'll literally be able to go into the preferences and set what kind of providers and services you prefer.
Now, in the flight to Atlanta, I could imagine I want to see that data two ways. Wait, right? Show me the fastest way to get there by noon on Tuesday, the 23rd of February, or whatever it is.
That's a sorting.
Sorting,
right.
Or show me the cheapest way to get there.
So
I don't care how long it takes me.
Just say it exactly that way. And
Really?
so you say, show me the cheapest, show me the best. And for instance, say you have, get me tickets to the Madonna concert. We're reasoning about, for instance, time and space. Well, maybe she's playing tomorrow night sooner, but 200 miles away. But the following night she's playing closer. So you could say, get me tickets to the Madonna concert in Oakland, and that'll get you the nearest time at that location.
Yeah.
So it's constantly trying to take the request that you've specified, any default preferences that you've done, and you ask it in your own words, and it will do its best to give the best results tuned to that. Right. So you say cheapest, show me best, show me the rating.
One last question. One thing I like about Foursquare is it shows me serendipity around me. You know, because if I get into Paris, I might not know what I want to do. Do I want to go to the Louvre? I don't know. Right. I don't know where the cool French bakery is. I don't know anything about the city. I just show up there, check in, and it shows me tips of what to do within walking distance.
Right. Yes.
Do you have something like that where I could just say, hey, I'm in Paris, I don't know what to do. Show me some cool things to do within walking distance.
We do. So even in the first version, you'll just be able to say, what's going on around here? And you'll come back. So we use good services like Eventful and others that have event information that can tell you right now what's going on around you. We're going to be even adding things, potentially even Foursquare, they have an API themselves to plug in real time, or the Geo Twitter API to see what people are talking about. But it's all an API for us. It's all a service. So if people want to know what people are talking about on Twitter, we'll add that too.
I'm going to do a quick demo of Siri, the personal assistant for your iPhone. So Siri is primarily focused on helping users get things done. So it's closer to a do engine than a search engine, for example. Let me give you some examples of that. Get me a table for 2 at Left Bank in Menlo Park at 6. So Siri figures out what you're trying to do, orchestrates web services on the back end, and makes it very simple to get directly to a transaction. So with one click, I have a reservation. I might need a ride to the restaurant tonight. Send a taxi to my house at 5:30. So again, when you know what somebody's trying to do, it's easy to figure out who can help them do it. Siri also uses structured data, so you can get very specific answers to questions from specific sources on the web, rather than, for example, links to websites where you have to go ahead and start that process from the beginning. Get tickets to the Sharks game when they play the Blackhawks. So Siri will be checking specific sources, in this case StubHub and Eventful. And with a click, you can see what tickets are available through StubHub, for example. Who's playing at Yoshi's this weekend? Again, structured data, looking for specific answers to the questions. If I want to figure out how to get to Yoshi's, click on the map, and there are directions directly. Siri also acts more like an administrative assistant and does things like reminders, and we'll be doing a lot more in this area. Remind me to call Adam about the party on Saturday morning. So we figure out that that's reminder, and Siri will, on Saturday morning, send a reminder email to me to give Adam a call. Siri also does slightly more complex computations. Here's a few examples of those. Find a good steak restaurant near the Four Seasons Hotel in Chicago. There's a few examples. What's the best Italian restaurant near Apple and Cupertino? Here's a few more examples of what Siri does in different domains. Did United 22 land? This would be flight stats mashed up dynamically with Google Maps, for example. What's the temperature in Honolulu right now? So weather queries of many sorts. You can also click to get radar and maps, and so on. Final example is things like navigation and getting places. Directions to HP Pavilion. Siri figures out where I'm trying to go, and without even asking, we'll go ahead and give me directions. This is also turn by turn. In case you're curious about it, I can show you who Siri is partnered up with on the back end today, and of course we're going to continue to add to that and eventually allow third parties to develop directly to the platform. Siri's partners. So as you can see, the platform makes it quite easy to do this, and Siri will be gaining capabilities quickly over time. Thanks for listening. Just a quick overview of Siri.
Very cool. Does it cost anything to buy the iPhone app?
It's a free app.
It's a free app.
It
Great.
is.
And where do I learn more about it?
You can go to Siri.com, and that'll probably be the best place to get the information about it.
Very cool. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming out and showing it
pleasure.
to me.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks.